Welcome to the Conscious Radio Network, where curiosity meets conversation. Get enlightened and have fun. Share the experience with friends, family, and anyone ready for thought-provoking dialogue. You can watch our shows on YouTube, follow us on Facebook, or connect with us on X, Instagram, and TikTok. Our podcasts are also available on Libsyn, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and other major platforms. Be sure to visit our official website at consciousradionetwork.com for past episodes, upcoming shows, and guest scheduling. And to our listeners around the cosmos, welcome. We're glad you're here. Subscribe, follow, and join the community.
This is the Conscious Radio Network.
Good day, everybody, wherever you might be on this spaceship we call Earth. Welcome to Conscious Radio Network's The Seance Podcast. And I'm your host, Reverend Dr. Paul Mekas. As many times as I keep saying that, that's the first time I stumbled. Wow. If this is the first time tuning in, please click like, subscribe, comment, share, and also don't forget to follow wherever you listen to your podcast. Today, we are joined by Angie Dixon, author of the Leonardo Trait and a lifelong advocate for wildly creative, brilliantly neurodivergent minds. Angie helps people stop fighting the way they're wired and start building lives that actually fit without the hustle, culture, or guilt. Audience loves her honesty, her humor, and just a hint of feral energy. And we're excited to have her with us today for the first time on the seance, Angie Dixon.
Paul, thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. Very welcome. So let's define the neurodivergent mind and how this guided you into this journey.
Sure. So neurodivergence is things like autism, ADHD. Some people include dyslexia and other learning disabilities in neurodivergence. And I think that is true. I'm not a doctor or a clinician. I just go with what the doctors and the clinicians tell me, which is that neurodivergent is a different way of brain functioning. Our brains are more creative. I won't say they're more intelligent, but we are very intelligent. We're very curious. We're very intellectually curious. We tend to have a lot of things going on at once, a lot of projects. We may have several jobs at one time or several businesses that we run. I like to call us Leonardos because we have so many different things going on like Leonardo did. And we are just, I think, brilliant people. And people who are not neurodivergent are known as neurotypical people. So there's neurotypical and there's neurodivergent. And a big problem I've seen is that a lot of neurodivergent people think that they're broken neurotypicals.
Yeah.
And we're not broken anything. We are perfect and brilliant the way we are.
Yeah, and especially when it comes to some of these, what are like some of the symptoms of neurodivergent? Now, there's so many different spectrums out there. Like you said, from autism to ADD, ADHD, especially dyslexia. I had a guest on not too long ago. We're talking about dyslexia, and he gave a simple test, and I passed, meaning that. And I grew up with slow learning disabilities, but at the same time, I've excelled in many different things, especially art and creativity. What are some of the most common neurodivergent abilities out there?
Neurodivergent people are really bright and really good at adapting. You'll hear things like we're not good at making eye contact and we're not good at social skills and we tend to go off on tangents and get really focused on one thing, like a special interest. And all of that can be true. But one thing that neurodivergent people like to say is if you've met an autistic person, you've met an autistic person. You haven't met all the autistic people, and
Yeah.
we're all different. We all have certain things. Yes, a lot of us are not good at social cues. A lot of us are very blunt when we talk. We don't go in for social niceties. If you ask us a question, you should be prepared for the answer.
Yeah.
I like to say, don't ever ask me anything unless you really want me to tell you, because I will.
Yeah.
If you ask me something, I assume it's because you want to know.
Yeah.
Because I'm asking you something, it's because I want to know, not because I want to hear some platitude or some, oh, you look great, when I know that I don't. If I'm asking for information, I want the truth from you.
Yeah.
So when you ask an autistic person or someone with neurodivergence a question, you're going to get an honest answer. And I think one of the things that makes us really special is that we are very open and honest, and we're also very, I've said creative several times, but that doesn't necessarily mean painting or writing, although I do both. It can mean creative with auto mechanics
Mm.
or cook or just creative in thinking. There's a lot of ways to be creative. And I find that neurodivergent people are often profoundly creative, and we are often creative in many different ways.
Yeah. There's one. I just got to ask this question. It might be off tangent, but I think it falls within. It definitely falls within the conversation. Is I've noticed it's not really a tick of mine, but I get set off by it. If I'm asking somebody a question, but they answer with a question, I get, hold on a second. Whoa, I get thrown off.
It's unsettling.
Because I expect an answer, but I get another question back. I'm like, no, that's not part of the conversation. Yeah, and it definitely throws me off. Have you? Do you get affected by that too? When you ask somebody else a question and you're expecting a direct answer, but it just throws you off a little bit. Whoa, hold on a second. Answer the question first.
It does. It's not what you're expecting, and we tend to be really straightforward people. I
Mhm.
ask and I expect an answer, and if I get a question instead, I have to stop and think, "Oh, I wasn't prepared for a question. Let me think about that for a second, because that is not what I was expecting you to say. I had some idea of what you were going to say. If I asked you, are you going to work tomorrow? I would expect yes, no, or maybe. And you said, why do you want to know? I
Yeah.
want to know because I'm curious as to whether you're going to work tomorrow.
Yeah. Oh yeah. What seems to be the biggest misconception or lie about neurodivergent creatives people hear about their brains shouldn't work, and what's the truth behind it?
I think the biggest thing I hear is that we need to finish what we start, because that's how neurotypical people work. They start something and they finish it. They may have 3 or 4 different things going on, but they're planning to finish all those things. Neurotypical people may have 20 or 30 things going on.
Mm.
And we know that we may not finish all of those. And there's a couple of things that I like to say about that. One is not everything needs to be finished. You may get to a point where you realize, oh, I don't want to do this anymore. This is not working out the way I thought it would. This is not something that interests me anymore. And the other thing is that we don't always start what we finish because, as I just mentioned, we start a lot of things. I mean,
Yes.
I once had an older sibling tell me that I need to finish what I start. So I sent her a list of 50 things I'd finished in the last year, including writing a novel and getting an agent for it. And I said, I start a lot of things, but I finished all of these things. And I never heard another word about it. But the thing is, I had probably started 200 things in that past year, but I had finished some really big ones. And I finished the ones that I wanted to finish and that I could finish. Sometimes I can't finish something. Sometimes I don't want to finish something. And sometimes I leave something to the side and I know I'm coming back to it, but I don't know when. Either because I have started too many things or because I want to start something else and I realize that I need to set something aside so that I can start this new thing that I want to do.
Yeah. Yeah. I catch myself too in a lot of, especially like on the weekends. I've got all this time to myself to do a bunch of these multiple condensed tasks. I'll start one thing and I'll get frustrated with it. I'm like, okay, no, I'm going to put this down because there's something else I got to go do. I'll go do that. I'll finish that and come back or just sit there and just, okay, let me watch TV for a couple minutes and stuff. And then I'll come back to it. I'll either finish it or get frustrated again and come back to it. Eventually it'll get finished. I try to make sure of that, but yeah, it's how does masking hold back our creativity, and what happens when you let your brain create naturally?
Okay, masking is when we're trying to pretend that we're not neurodivergent and we're trying to act like we think we're supposed to act and like people expect. And masking, I like to think of it as being basically like taking a wet sponge and wrapping it around your brain. It just stifles your creativity and your ingenuity. And it's very hard to be who you really are when you're trying to be somebody that you think you should be. And it really stifles creativity because your brain is not, you're not allowing your brain to come up with all these different connections, which is really what creativity is, all these different connections and all these different thoughts and ideas just bouncing off of each other. And when we mask, we're not able to be our creative selves because we're expending so much energy on the masking.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, when it comes to like our public schools or any education system, do you see have you seen any complementary things with these institutions that are starting to honor
I
neurodivergent people?
I don't have kids in public school anymore. When my kids left public school, which has been about a decade, a little over a decade, they were not really built for neurodivergent children, students. I have a neurodivergent son and a neurotypical daughter. My daughter thrived in public school. She went to a huge high school and she found her teacher and she found her friends and she did amazing.
Mm.
Our son did not do well in school. After about, I think it was fifth grade, he did not do well. He was having trouble keeping up with his work, even though he was in the gifted and talented program. He was just having a really hard time with getting the work done because he was bored.
Yeah.
And he started middle school and it did not go well. And we pulled him out and homeschooled him, which did go really well because he could learn to read by reading about dragons and wizards and that kind of thing. He could learn math by doing things like cooking and which he enjoyed, and learning fractions by an eighth of a cup and a quarter of a cup and that kind of thing. And so I would hope that schools have gotten better. I don't really have any information about that.
Yeah, because I think, yeah, and there's different states, different places have, and sometimes there's these private, like you said, homeschool. I'm sure there's a homeschool specific homeschool activities and associations that complement neurodivergent minds. And yeah. So you talk about neurodivergent brilliance being nonlinear, intuitive, and something chaotic. How can creatives thrive in a world that loves, talk about like the calendar, these systems and stuff like that? How can the creatives thrive in a world that loves calendars and all these to-do lists and all this very specific
Yeah,
logistics?
I'm fortunate to not have a real job anymore, but a lot of people do. And if you have a real job and you need to have a real job, one thing that I like to do is to simplify my calendar.
Mm,
I like to look ahead and think, oh, I have this, and what is the best way that I can make these things I need to do fun for me? And how can I enjoy, say, writing a page for my website? How can
mm.
I make that something interesting for me? Another thing, I just lost my train of thought for a second, but something that I like to do is to really plan ahead, that if I've got something big to do, a lot of people, the conventional wisdom says that you start with that thing and you get it out of the way and then you move on to the other thing.
Mm.
What I like to do, because I also have ADHD, I have ADHD and autism, we call it ADHD. But something that I've found is that starting with the big thing is very hard for me because I don't have any, it doesn't give me any dopamine at first.
Yeah.
So I don't have that incentive to start it. What I like to do is pick the most fun thing on my list and do that first. And then I have some momentum going into that bigger thing. And that helps me get through the big thing because then I have some dopamine that's helping me push through. And then it starts to be fun, the big thing. It starts to be fun because I'm getting into it and I can really sink my teeth into it. And I find that starting with something fun to give me a little bit of a boost or a spark, and then just keep pushing forward from, that's something that really helps me.
Yeah. Putting the creative spins on things that seem to be, I don't know, what do you call it? Too logistical, very specific, scientific.
Yeah.
I learned, actually, I didn't learn it. I had to implement it when I had to learn trigonometry and calculus during an electrical apprenticeship program. I had to repeat a semester, and I never took trigonometry in high school. And I was like, okay, with the creative mind that I had, I had to come up with some sort of a way to understand these formulas and the certain laws within electrical. And so I issued a specific color for a particular point within the formula. And as I saw these colors, I don't know, it just seemed to flow a lot better. It was something within my brain saw it much more clear than just numbers.
You found a creative way to make it work for you, that when it really wasn't making sense, you could say, oh, this is a color and this is a color. And if I blend these two colors, I get this color.
Yeah.
And you could make it work for you that way.
Yeah.
That's
And then
brilliant.
I shared it with some other people that were having not the same issues I did, but I showed them. I was like, yeah, just do this and that. And if it worked for them, I don't know. A couple of people it did. They're like, oh, wow, that's an interesting idea. Okay. So it's, yeah, trying to put a creative spin on something that can help you learn specific things, whether it's, I don't know, a foreign language, math, or whatnot, which segues into my next question, or segues into the next topic, is your book. Explain a little bit about your book. Let me bring that up so people can actually see it and where they can find it. And let me also bring up your website there too. For actually, before we move forward, is for those who are watching can see it scrolling on the bottom of the screen. But for those who are going to be listening, where can they find you?
at profoundcreativity.com. It's my hub for my book. I'm running a summit in January of 2026. And just basically anything I'm doing with the Leonardo Trait and with my creative work will be there. My book is called The Leonardo Trait. It's a manifesto on profound creativity in a chaotic world. And the Leonardo Trait is basically a set of characteristics or traits that creative people, and not just neurodivergent people, but I'm writing largely to neurodivergent creative people. It's a set of traits, including, as we talked about, the curiosity, the intelligence, the being able to make the connections, the energy that we have is just stunning until it's not. I always like to say I have two speeds, fast and stop. And we have a lot of energy, and then suddenly we need to take a long nap.
Yeah.
All of this combined, I call the Leonardo trait. I think Leonardos are some of the most brilliant, most amazing people in the world. I also think that we spend a lot of time masking, and we spend a lot of time trying to be someone we're not. And I like to say the world doesn't need two Pauls or two Angies. The world needs Paul and Angie. And we really are just amazing human beings. And my goal is to help every every neurodivergent person be more of who they are.
Yeah. And also too helping the non-neurodivergent, what was the other name for those?
Neurotypical.
Neurotypical. Also helping the neurotypical identify certain neurodivergent people and have that share the table. And I'm sure
Exactly.
there's some people that the neurotypical are working around a lot of neurodivergent individuals and may not even know it, and actually help appreciate the neurodivergence.
Definitely. We need all of us. The world works a lot better when everyone appreciates everyone else for who they are and works with them the way they need to be worked with, whether that's because they're neurodivergent and they need things a little different, or because they're neurotypical and they need to do things strictly by the book.
Yeah. Yeah. And two, it's, I think the neurotypical people are, it seems, it might be, in general, it seems the majority of the neurotypical have this like phobia or fear, and they want to have this distance from those that are neurodivergent. Only I don't know why. I've heard that in the past. People just keep their distance and stuff like that. But like I said, there's neurodivergence that may not be can be visually seen right off the bat. It's something that you'd have to get to know the person first. And then you've got those that's obvious. And what are some of the things that I want to put a spin on this too, is to help people maybe be a little bit more acceptant for those that are neurodivergent, is the getting into a conversation with somebody like we're having right now, is what seems to be an interesting subject that would just blow somebody's neurotypical mind.
Neurodivergent people get really interested in things, and we have what we call special interests, and most of us have at least one thing that we're really interested in. I'm really interested in music. A friend of mine is really interested in comedy. She can tell you about comedy acts from 1972 that are only available on vinyl records, and she can tell you some of their routines. And it's important, I think, to be interested in the other person. And it's also okay to realize if you're talking to someone and they're going on and on about comedy or music or magic or whatever their special interest in is, it's okay to say, hey, I've got to run, or hey, this is really interesting, but I wanted to ask you about this work project. We are not offended when people can't listen to us for 3 hours about our favorite topic. It might shake us a little bit in that it jars us out of what we're talking about, but we're not upset or irritated or bothered. It just takes us a second to get back into, oh yes, this is actually a conversation and not a monologue, and I need to let this person talk or let them go and do what they need to do. It really, we love to talk, and we love to talk about what we're interested in, but we don't need to be treated like we're fragile.
Yeah.
We don't need you to keep listening to us while your ears are glazing over because you're afraid to interrupt us.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm a little bit on the other side, and to explain that is I'm more of a listener. I like to sit back and observe. Just pull in all this information. Either just sit back and listen to a conversation. Sometimes conversations that I'm in the middle of, but I'm part of the audience. I'm listening to some people talk or have a conversation, or a real off the wall argument, but like a fun argument, and just listen. I want nothing to do with the conversation. Just sit back and just pull in all this information and just sit there and just observe. Is that something that seems to be a really cool thing to do too, as part of neurodivergence, is just sit back and just observe everything?
Yes, we're very observant. We will get in the car sometimes, and I will say to my husband, that was weird. And he'll say, what? What are you talking about? One time I was in the dollar store, and there was this group of men, 3 or 4 men, and they were holding like a little plastic, like a Tupperware, and one of them closed it, and he said, I didn't hear anything. And the others all said, yeah, I didn't hear anything either. And I can just imagine that they were at a party, and one of the wives said, hey, go to the Dollar Tree and get some of those plastic boxes, but make sure you get one that burps when you close it. And I was just imagining this whole scenario of them having to go back to the party and saying, we got this, but we can't hear anything.
Oh man. Oh man. Yeah, I can imagine a scenario like a little skit going on in the middle of the aisle, and a bunch of guys are just trying to find the right one that burps, and it doesn't burp. None of them will burp. They're like, well, we're in the wrong store. Wow. What's the rule of productivity you think we should throw out immediately?
I think all of hustle culture should just be thrown out. You're not necessarily more successful because you're doing a lot or because you're working a lot of hours. You're successful because you're accomplishing what you need to accomplish. And if you can do that in 3 hours a day, then you should do that in 3 hours a day and spend the rest of your time doing things that you enjoy. I used to work crazy hours. I was definitely a workaholic, and I was trying to do what I felt was expected of me. And what I thought was expected was that a freelance writer would be working 80 hours a week.
Yeah.
And I just destroyed my back, destroyed my mind. And when I finally moved away from that, I realized, I can delegate some of this stuff. I can ask people to help me. And a lot of it just doesn't need to be done. I ran across something recently that someone I was learning from said that his name is Zach, and he said that someone had said, Zach, you're aiming at B minus. And he said, I don't know about that. And she said, no, that's a good thing. It's a good thing because you feel like if it's B minus, that's good enough. And then you can move on and try to do the next thing. And then once you get to a point where you're happy with it, you can go back and polish it all, but you're not aiming for every single word of every single page to be perfect. You're aiming for it to be good enough to accomplish what you're aiming for. And I just thought that was so good.
Wow.
That this whole idea of everything has to be perfect just needs to die in a fire.
Yeah. Yeah. Perfection is definitely overrated. I catch myself too, and I'm sure most people can relate to this, is especially running a podcast and trying to keep it. This is a one-man show. I try to do it all, and I don't want to give it to anybody else. It's like, why don't you outsource? I'm like, I don't want to outsource. I want to have full creative power over everything. And not only it's fun, I like doing it. It's something I like to do. And I don't know. I think that contributes to the perfectionist. The perfectionist has found a little tiny issue. Oh, I got to get rid of that and have to go either do it over again or. But I don't know. What's a good way to just throw that off the table? Is that something we got to train ourselves for? Okay, and it is hard to get that out of the mind. Don't worry about it. Napkins upside down or the towels are backwards. Who cares?
Yeah, a lot of it is, I think we just have to learn to relax. But one thing that I learned years ago, and there was a book by Susie Welch, who was married to Jack Welch of GE, and the book was called 10-10-10. And it was, I don't remember exactly, but it was something like, is this going to be a problem in 10 minutes, in 10 months, or in 10 years? And I'm not sure I've got the months part right. It might have been weeks. But it was, how big a problem is this? Is this something that I'm going to still care about in 10 years? Or is it something I'm going to still care about in a year? Or is it something that I'm going to have forgotten about in 10 minutes?
Yeah.
I think we really have to train ourselves to understand that not everything that's not perfect needs to be perfect. Obviously, if I have a typo in my book, I want to fix that.
Yeah.
But if I have a typo in a blog post, I want to fix that too, but it's not as big a deal.
Mm-hmm.
I want to spend time looking at my blog post and make sure that I've got everything right. But I don't want to spend as much time reading a blog post as I would reading a chapter of the book. I want to skim through the blog post, maybe have somebody else look at it, or maybe even run it through ChatGPT and say, hey, can you see if there are any typos in this? Whereas my book, I'm going to read that 7 or 8 times. I'm going to read it slowly. I'm going to read it fast. I'm going to read it out loud. I'm going to read it backward. I'm going to have 3 or 4 other people read it. I really want the book to be as perfect as I can make it. The blog post just has to be good enough.
Yeah. What are some of the really wow factors of some of your abilities? Like you said about music or anything that's creative. What's something that is like that wow, somebody else just looks at like you're doing something and that you're really good at, and somebody can just be like, wow, how did you do that? Some of your
I can write 500 words in about 7 minutes.
What? Wow.
Now, the way I do that is I think about it for a while, maybe half an hour before I sit down to write. I can write as fast as I can type because I've already figured out what I'm going to say. And when I sit down to type it, I'm literally just typing out what I've already thought of.
Whoa. Wow. That is fast. Oh, man. Whew.
Once figured out how many miles an hour that was. I figured out how many words in a mile. I don't remember what it was. It was like 0.0152 or something miles an hour.
Heck yeah. What's one tiny shift someone can make today to better honor their own wiring?
One thing I think is to just try to do one thing that makes you more comfortable in your skin, whether that's like like to wear novelty t-shirts. I've got Statler and Waldorf on today.
Yeah.
Whether it's wearing something that makes you more comfortable or doing something in your spare time that you just really enjoy that's maybe you think might be a little silly. or a little indulgent. I love to listen to music. I can't play anything. I've given up on that goal. I don't have that. But one thing I really like is Christmas music. And my daughter and I used to argue about what time of year I would start listening to Christmas music. I wanted to start on the 1st of July. And she talked me into waiting until the 1st of October
Yeah.
because at least I wasn't starting in July. But now I only listen on earbuds. So if I want to listen to Christmas music in March, I just don't tell my daughter I'm listening to Christmas music in March.
Yeah.
She has come in and said, "You're listening to Share Christmas, aren't you?" And I'll say, "Yeah, I am." She said, "Mom, it's the 1st of April. I'm not bothering you."
Yeah. Yeah. And it's a giveaway too if you're humming to it.
Yeah, it is. She has come in and she says, "Is that DJ play a Christmas song?" Yeah, it is. I always say it's what makes me happy. I love Christmas music, and I think it's a shame that most people only listen to it between Thanksgiving and Christmas because there's so much really good music that
Yeah.
just happens to be Christmas music.
Yeah, even some of the classics. I'll reach out and get some of the classics and start listening to Bing Crosby, Dean Martin,
Harry
Frank
Como.
Sinatra. Yeah, just some of the old classical. It's like, whoa. Yeah, that you can listen here all year round, not even worry about it. What do you listen to? No, it's classical.
That's right.
Oh, man. So before we start closing up the show, where can people find you?
ProfoundCreativity.com.
Oh, cool. And one thing about this book that you want people to know about without giving too much detail, but one thing that really stands out, you feel that really stands out that people should know that's in this book.
I think this is a really accessible book. You don't need to know a lot of clinical terms or any clinical terms. You don't even need to know for sure that you're neurodivergent. You can just have a feeling. And if the book resonates with you, I actually hate that word, but if the book means something to you, then that's my goal, is that you can read it and you can access the information, and hopefully it will make you feel something and help you understand your life better.
Yeah. Yeah. And I like when your subtitle, Profound Creativity in a Chaotic World. Wow. That is correct. It seems like the world is getting more and more chaotic. Now, do you feel that way because of the neurodivergence that you have, or is it just, do you see it in everybody? Because I see it in everybody.
I see it in everyone. Everyone has something going on. We sometimes try to feel like we think other people look. Everyone has something going on. No one has it all together. And I'm speaking specifically to neurodivergent people, but everyone has something going on, and everyone can benefit from giving themselves a little grace.
Amen to that. Heck yeah. So before we go, I ask all our guests what they have to offer as a takeaway, some words of wisdom.
I would just say who you are is enough, even when it doesn't feel like it. And I really encourage people to just try to, even in small ways, just be true to themselves.
Yeah. Like you said, don't be somebody or something you're not.
Exactly.
Understand your gifts, your likes, your dislikes. Don't do anything or try to be someone that you're not, because you got to let your light shine. What it's all about. Definitely. Angie, thank you. Blessings, my friend. Thank you.
Thank you for
And
having me.
you're very welcome. Very welcome. And for anybody out there too, this is not for those who are neurotypical and you want to know more about neurodivergency. I believe this book would also probably help them too to understand
Yes,
that.
definitely.
Yeah. Awesome. Cool. Angie, thank you. Thank you once again. And welcome back
Thank you.
anytime too when the next book comes out.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome. And thank you everybody for watching The Seance on Conscious Radio Network. Until next week, we'll see you then.